staff, Max. We'll start our meeting this morning with the karakia.
Kia ora. Tui ki ranga, tui ki raro, tui ki roto, tui ki wahua, tui tātou te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te huinei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nui, mori ora ki a tātou katoa. Bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us the people to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day. Breathe life into all of us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Walker. Yes, so welcome everybody, including those on Zoom. Just to be clear, we have Councillor Greening, we have Community Board Member David Armstrong, and we have Councillor Hill on Zoom. So just a reminder, please, that the meeting is being recorded and you can watch it on YouTube if you like. Microphones muted unless you're speaking. Put your hand up if you wish to speak. And yeah, that's all good. Toilets and fire exits, I think we are familiar with that, and we do have the media present. We'll move to apologies. We do have an apology for lateness from Mayor King. Are there any other apologies? No, all right. Do we have a mover for those apologies, please? Yeah, Councillor Dowler, seconded by Councillor Shellcrass. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. We have no one registered for the public forum this morning. And so we will just move to Richard. You've got some staff matters you'd like to talk about.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I know, although we're doing the community infrastructure report later on, I thought if we could just introduce one staff member who's here, Tim Go. Tim's down the back. Tim's our new Reserves Operations Officer. He's replaced Richard Hilton, who's moved up, and replaced Grant Reburn, who's moved up and replaced Richard Hollier. So self-promote with a lot of promotion within the organisation. So welcome, Tim. And also a sad situation, well, not sad, in a sense, that people do retire. We've got Robert Workman down the back there. Robert's retiring at the end of this month. And Robert's been with council 12 years, so he's done some good service as a stormwater engineer. So we just want to record our thanks to Robert for his years of service. And the third one, Cam Algie's on leave, so we'll catch up with him next time, next meeting. Thanks.
Very good. Well, particularly Robert, thank you very much for your service to the Tasman District Council, and now you can sit back and watch every future flood event and not lose too much sleep. So thank you very much. I will move to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. We have some minutes that we need to confirm, and they are the minutes of the meeting on the 28th of September. Do we have a mover for those minutes, please? Moved Councillor Mayling and seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Yes, it's funny that we can look at these meetings on YouTube, isn't it? I said this to my two grandkids yesterday because they always wonder what I go and do. I said, well, you can watch me on YouTube. They went, oh, really? So there we go. Get the kids onto watching it as a new YouTube channel.
You say hi to them.
Oh, hi. Yeah. All right. Reports. So I think we're going to start off with our libraries, customer service and community partnerships update report. So welcome, John. You're by yourself.
Isn't it funny how Glynis always gets? No, she's Glynis.
Ask him about Burnley.
Glynis isn't well today. She's suffering a bit, and Janet said you can just do it yourself. And Julia will come in a minute. Look, I hope she turns up because that's the really important stuff you really need to focus on is the community partnership stuff. I'll take the item is read, there's a couple of things I want to quickly talk about. The Murchison activity is in terms of the service centre and the library. Oh, thank goodness for that. As we've seen, not marked interest, but certainly a bit of interest. Sorry, increase in use in that area. That's because we've put a bit more energy, I think, into the libraries and stuff, and I think it's fair to say we've got a bit of fresh energy in the service centre. So we're not seeing a massive increase, but it's certainly pleasing to see a little bit more increase in terms of usage of the service centre in Murchison. The other thing, the customer service side of things, and you'll see Janet has not put stats in there, but what she has talked about, and this reinforces a little bit of Janine's commentary around the impact we're seeing in terms of levels of aggression from our small parts of our community. And we had a couple of instances around the district, which I have to say concern me a little bit because it seems to just nudged up a level. So we've the assurances I want to give, we have health and safety systems in place, we have all the stuff we need to do, but sometimes it's hard to deal with being approached in the car park after work, which is what has happened in the past. So we do have systems and processes in place, but I'm just alluding to you, this is the level we've sort of got to. It's one-offs, it's not constant, it's not regular, but it's certainly on the rise. And then we go on to the positive stuff.
All right, thank you. So let's just take it section by section if we can. So we'll talk about libraries first. So in terms of the library section of the report, Councillor Butler.
Thank you. It's actually not a question. It's in relation to 3.11. I do recall that Alistair Hughes, I think it was at the time of the Waimea Dam, but he did devastating cartoons of Richard Kempthorne in the Golden Bay Community News. So I don't know if anybody remembers those, but they were because they were very good, but they were devastating. But he seems to have laid off the council since then, so that's good news for us.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. So in terms of libraries, pages through to page 8, any questions on libraries for John? No, all right. We'll move to community partnerships. Yulia.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm just happy to take the report as read, and only want to add one thing, is that as you know, that our team is involved with allocating and reviewing grant applications for several grants that we're having. And one of the things that we've done this year is we now offering a portal for the community that is called Grant Guru, where they can go and search for grants that are relevant to them and relevant to our area. So this is something new that we hope will help our community groups to search for more diverse funding and not only apply to Tasman District Council, but also see what else is available. And this portal provides support not only for community groups, but also for businesses. So basically businesses will be able to register as a business, and all the grants that are available nationally for businesses will be shown to them. This is something that I also want you to know, because sometimes people come to you asking about funding, and so you can just send them to our website and say that there is a Grant Guru portal that will assist them with looking for funding. Yes, so any questions?
All right, thank you, Yulia. We'll start with Deputy Mayor Bryant, followed by Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask about a couple of things, that your comments about grants, and looks like we need a bit of a review of the multiple applications and also the community consultation. Are you thinking that will be a full council workshop or just the grants committee with recommendations? What's your thoughts around that?
I think we've been talking about this because our policy, our community grants policy, has expired. So we need to work on the new policy. And I think our policy team is now very involved with LTP process, so they don't really have time at the moment to do it. But hopefully in the next year, we'll try and review that policy. And of course, the subcommittee will be involved in reviewing it. Yeah, John wanted to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to, I mean, I guess that's over to you, really. I mean, ideally, it would come from the subcommittee, a recommendation up to council, I think, because you're probably more involved in it than the rest of the elected members. So, but we're open to suggestions on that, I think.
That would be my thoughts.
Okay.
That's the subcommittee making recommendations. And does your report cover off environmental education as well? 4.6?
Yes, it does. Yes.
So just in relation to the free community firewood giveaway,
Yeah.
it was such an overwhelming success. It was too successful. Is there any plans to review and look at how we do that?
Yes, absolutely. We received a lot of feedback from community groups and from the community. And I know that P.F. Olsen already did the debrief, and Mike Drummond was involved from the senior leaders from the council, and also staff who were at the event were involved as well. So they reviewed, they know that it was successful, but they know that it needs to be done differently. And obviously for next year, they still want to do it, but there are some ways how to improve this event. And we had a couple of inquiries from community groups who say that maybe you should approach us first, and then, because community groups sometimes involved with the vulnerable population, and maybe through them partially it can be allocated. So there are several ways of how we can improve it, and we are working on it. Thank you.
Good to know. Yeah. Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bryant. Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Yulia, I just actually want to acknowledge 4.5 and your support and help with the Motueka Positive Ageing Forum. So, and also to Mary Nichols and Chris Hickson for their work there. But it was pretty bold allowing Motueka to have their first one. So, thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It was a really great event, really good for the community. But we know that those two people who were involved in organizing it, they work really hard, but probably will not be able to continue the same way. So again, we need to review it and see how we can put more resources in that event next or the following year.
Thank you. Councillor Kinmont, then Councillor Walker.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Page 10, clause 4.12. Now, I might mispronounce this. The Rarangi Harakeke project. We were going to have two wall hangings. We've discussed this. Maybe you should let the rest of the team councillors know what's happening there, please.
So that was a workshop organized by one of our staff and several other staff from Tasman District Council, was dedicated to Te Reo Māori Week, and about 100 of people, 100 council staff came to support that event, basically weaving two pieces of artwork. So Raranga is weaving, and that's what they did, with the intention of giving that back to the council for potentially putting somewhere. And the discussion was to put it somewhere in the council chambers, but I'm not sure what are we going to do about it.
We'll come back.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to reflect a little bit back on the success or not successful wood event. So I guess as a councillor, you hear both sides of every story, and I did receive some quite grieved members of our community who hired a trailer, waited an hour in a line just find out there was no wood left, waited another hour because you couldn't actually negotiate your way back out. So it was good that the team have reflected and they're coming up with plans. And I note that in point 4.8, we talk about that if you purchase your firewood early enough, we have a $50 discount incentive voucher, which I think is great. I just have a little question around that you have to buy 3 cubes of wood. So a lot of the people that I heard from, they can't afford 3 cube of wood. And I just wonder where we got the 3 cube from. And when you go into dialogue with community groups about next year, some of those community groups will tell you some of our residents actually are lucky to be able to afford 1.5 cube of wood. And I just wonder where your 3 cube came from, if I can see there's someone chomping to give me a response. Thanks.
That's true, Madam Chair. As mentioned, we are going to be looking at the entire process again. One of the key feedback that's come back as Julie has mentioned, is that it goes through as a charitable event. How that's going to be managed is yet to be decided. There's been talk of a koha. One of our biggest issues was the time it took to load each trailer. We had the messaging that went out was for a normal 6x4 trailer. We had people turning up with massive cages, horse trailers, you name it. And we also had a lot of elderly people that couldn't load the trailers themselves. So the biggest issue wasn't really the volume of wood, it was the time taken to load each trailer. So we have to manage that. And the thinking at the moment is we restrict everyone to say 1.5 cubic meters per trailer, and we figure out a better way to load it, maybe using mechanical process. But we've had a debrief, and there's a lot of work that's got to be taken on if we do the event again in future.
Thank you, Nick. Just in response to Councillor Walker's question around the 3 cubic meters for the $50 voucher. So why have you decided that they have to be buying 3 cubic meters to be eligible for the $50 voucher?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is not related to that event, but I'm not sure about that. So I will need to find out, and I will let you know.
Thank you very much. Is that it, Councillor Walker? Yep, Councillor Butler.
Yeah, just in relation to 4.13, the Te Kako Stream Conservation Project in Golden Bay. Who's actually driving that? I see it's under the Maori heading. Is it a partnership, or because I know it's been something that has been sort of languishing for years to get that stream revived, and it coming in as your report would indicate that it's actually being driven as a community thing rather than an environmental thing, but it is actually an environmental, program. So it would be just helpful to know. I'm really thrilled that it's actually happening, because residents have been wanting it to happen, but for many, many years, but they've been held up by a few landowners who were not interested in being involved, but there may have been a change in that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, for your question. So this part is led by our team in Golden Bay, and CJ Webster, and so she is actually working with the community and with landowners around that stream, and with the schools as well. We provided you environmental education report last time, and it didn't include that information. So we're actually working on another report that will include more Golden Bay information and what is happening there in environmental education, but also in other environmental areas. So we will be reporting on that shortly as well.
Okay, thanks very much. I can take it up with her as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thought there was a long list. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just another issue, usually around the welcoming communities. You had an event, and this was partially a question from a constituent. a statement of commitment, what does that really mean? And what was the cost of all this? Is this within existing budgets or is this additional cost?
Right, first the event, yeah. So that initially was intended at the top of all three councils, Marlborough, Nelson and Tasman, were to sign this commitment, and doesn't have a financial. I've been assured it has no financial commitment to this council, and that was one of the discussions I had around this when I was giving advice to Tim to sign this document, that it didn't, in one of a better phrase, have a liability on this council going forward. So there's 3 years worth of funding through Immigration New Zealand. It's $50,000 a year. I suspect that, I mean, we're covering the cost of this in existing budgets in terms of that event. But the reality is that service will cost more than we're getting from Immigration New Zealand. Now that expires, I think, next year. And we have not included that in the long-term plan going forward.
But it would be fair to say that the largest percentage of the cost has been covered by, did you call it Department of Immigration?
The largest cost of providing welcoming communities, is covered by the grant from Immigration New Zealand.
Yeah, that's what I want to write down. Thank you.
But there
Have you got something further?
Sorry, yeah, just in addition to that, last year, staff applied for additional funding, and so that additional funding was used for events. So all the events within welcoming communities are not paid by the ratepayers, but it's an additional funding that we applied for. It was $10,000 grant that we received for those events, and that one commitment ceremony is included in that cost.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bryant. Just one question from me, Julia. We talk in your report about the special grants that are available for people to apply for, and also the Grant Guru portal. My question is, how are you ensuring that our community at large actually knows about these things? What's your plan to communicate?
For the Grant Guru, at the moment, we are preparing newsline article, and then in beginning of next year, we're actually doing like a road show. So we're going to towns. We used to do it before COVID, and it was very successful. So in the libraries, it's just a drop-in event where everybody's invited to come and have a look at our grants, and we help them with applications if they need to, and just usually it's involved us, Rata Foundation, and DIA. So 3 of us go to different towns and just have those conversations with the community. So that's how we promote our grants. Regarding special grants, just because I'm in this role kind of temporarily, I'm not sure why it's not broadly advertised. We only have limited funding. It's only $15,000, and applicants applying for 10 and more. So I think that's why it's not broadly advertised, because we just don't have that enough funding to cover. But we work with applicants on their applications for the special grants, and those who inquire over the year, we just let them know that it's actually available now, so you can apply.
All right, thank you. Well, I guess as councillors, we can help to communicate in terms of both of those. But I do think particularly about the Grant Guru, that as well as Newsline, you might just want to send an email to the chairs of the various community associations just to let them know.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Julia, thank you very much. I think no hand signals happening over here. I think we will now move to the Janet's component of the report, customer service update.
Yeah, I think the biggie in there is and this is something that I think is a real good test of the use of this building for external services. So you'll see there that the Citizens Advice Bureau are going to be coming in and providing some services in what the duty planner room is used sporadically for. So I was really keen on testing this stuff. You know, and I think it was born from when I went to the AGM with the Citizens Advice. I got talking to their general manager there, and the strain, I guess, that's put on financially on some of these organisations to deliver what are really amazing services. So, look, this is a trial. We'll see how it goes. They're pretty self-supportive, and I think this is something we should be doing more and more. It opens ourselves up to the community much more. We're going to get a different, the people who generally interact with us and customer services might change a little bit, and we might actually be able to use that then to talk about other things that this council does and the amazing work that goes on. And maybe people access services and get a bit more engaged in what goes on in council. So I think it's a great opportunity. So that was the main highlight, I guess, in there. And I also raised the negative stuff around the behaviour of a minority of our community.
Thank you very much, John. Yeah, well, I think the Citizens Advice Bureau does seem like a really good initiative. And I think, this committee will look forward to finding out, after you've piloted it or whatever, how it goes, because using existing investment and infrastructure for more general purposes, good initiative. I'll just check whether there are any other. Yeah, Councillor Maru, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in terms of the negative behaviour from a very few, John, it would be really helpful for elected members to know, because if they're interacting with us in a different manner, one, we can call it out, or two, you could pre-warn us in terms of about to interact with those people. But I just think it's really unfair that the front-facing part of the organisation gets the grief of the decisions that are ultimately made around this table. So I'd just be interested in being aware, especially in the Wituika ward, if that happens or who that happens from, and perhaps ways of calling that out.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily decisions that you as elected members are making. These are people who have a particular issue. It could be anything from a dog through to a rates bill, so it tends to be quite specific issues. And people pop up and they disappear again. We don't hear from them again, but it's fair cool. There are some privacy issues, of course, we need to be aware of, but we'll share as much as we can to give you the ability, if you need to do it. But I just want to assure you, we do have systems in place. We do look after our team. We certainly support team, and we're putting in place things. If we can, it's really hard though sometimes, because it can just pop up and disappear again.
Thank you very much. Right, and we do have a resolution up there on the screen if to receive the report. Okay, moved by Councillor Butler and seconded by Councillor Ellis. So is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put that resolution which is up there. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, John and Julie. That then brings us to the Information Services Operations and Digital Innovation Program update. And we have got Steve, and we've got Peter, and we've got Chris on Zoom. Yes, good. All good to go. All right, Steve, we'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors. So we've got Chris who's presenting on Zoom today. It seems that sickness doesn't always leave us, does it? So I'll let Chris introduce the report. A couple of things that I just wanted to say in advance of that. Some of you, it's the ALGM annual conference next week, which is the principal conference for the information technology and information management function. Some of you might remember that at last year's ALGM conference, the information services team was given the award of Team of the Year, and that followed up on some previous awards that we'd won around our DORA system. So really delighted to say that we are finalists again this year for an information management project around the scanning of our historical records. Some of you might remember Lucy's paper to that to this committee some time ago in an article and stuff. So really encouraged that she's been a finalist. And also Peter is a finalist or is a nominee for the ICT Professional of the Year. And we're hopeful that we might win both of those awards next week. And I will certainly update you through Newsline when we find that bit of information out. So with that said and done, I'll hand over to Chris and he can table the report.
Cool. Thanks, Steve. Apologies I can't be with you today. We've got COVID in my household, so I'm just keeping everyone at work safe. I'll take the report largely as read. I do know there is a question around 1.3 from Councillor Kinnamoth. And of course, open to questions. I would like to talk about the item around testing with our surety partner. I think that'd be quite a good thing to highlight, but maybe I'll come to that after any questions on the report.
All right. Well, Councillor Kinnamoth, we're starting with you then.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Clause on page 14, clause 3.3. The DIP governing board, I see there's in the flow charts how the system is set up in about 4 tiers, but I just really want to know who is on the governing board and what is the purpose, overarching reason for it.
Sure. So we have, I think if you've got the attachment there, I don't know if it's on the screen for you, I can't see from here. I'll talk you through it. So this has been in place since the programme began. We've reviewed it recently and made some minor adjustments. Some of those adjustments are around aligning with an industry model called Managing Successful Programmes and using some of the terminology from that standard. And also, we just wanted to make sure we had the right people representing the business and the programme as we start moving into a more user-facing stage. So we have a role called the Senior Responsible Owner, and that's Steve. And that role is very much the, if you like, the sponsor of the programme. So Steve has the delegations through council budgets and so on to drive the programme. It's largely driven through IS, so it made sense that that role sits with Steve. The programme manager, that's me, is on there. I'm a non-voting member, so I'm there obviously to provide information, advice, guidance, and so on. We have Leonie is there as her role as the Chief Operating Officer. So a lot of the work that we're doing is around internal business processes and operational matters, which very much sits in her area of authority. And she was on the board for the last 2 years in any case, so she's been a standing member. We've created a role to have finance representation on the board, and this is a request from Paul Egan himself to join. He was a fairly new member to the finance team and particularly interested in making sure that we are spending the money well, we're doing all the right processes, procedures, and he also has a stake in terms of the improvements that finance hope to gain from the innovation programme as well. And we have an external advisor that they only invited onto the board with their approval, who is Emma Johns from Deloitte. So she is coming in to help us with an external eye and to be someone who can offer advice and guidance and challenge. And Steve might be able to speak a bit more to Emma's role because they have a lot more conversations than I do. We also have a placeholder for a business change manager or manager's role, which is a role in this model, which is where you might have a senior manager from the area of the business that is particularly experiencing the change you're trying to do, for example, in finance or in customer services. We haven't got anybody in those roles just yet, but that is a placeholder should we feel that's helpful to have that voice around the board. So that's the overarching DIP governance board. It's been, like I say, it's been in place for 2 years already. So we made some minor changes to role definition there. Underlying that, we have 4 workstream boards at the moment. So we have 6 work streams in total. One of them is relatively operational and the other one hasn't started up yet. That's a Smart Regions work stream. But all the others we're now establishing boards to govern the projects in each of the work streams. So initially we toyed with the idea of having separate project boards for each project. but we realised that would create quite an unwieldy governance layer, lots of meetings, same people, same meetings. So we've grouped them as workstream boards. So each of those has a workstream sponsor. So we have John Ridd is the sponsor for the core council applications workstream. Leonie is the workstream sponsor for the community channels and workflows. Daryl Kearns is the cloud sponsor. I feel like I'm missing one. Data and Insights, which is Mike Pratt. So those boards are being established at the moment. We're kind of getting those first meetings together, and we have representatives from the business on those to steer those projects. And that's the governance structure. There are more operational teams as well. I don't think I need to get into. I just wondered whether Steve wants to add anything about Emma's role.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chris. So we have always had a space on the governance board for an external advisor since we convened the first iteration of our governance board 2 or 3 years ago, but we never appointed one, partly, I think, because of oversight and just getting on and getting busy and dealing with COVID at the time. And so when we looked at refreshing our board structure to better meet the needs of the program going forward, we felt that it was really important that we had an external to provide us with that challenge, as Chris said, but also the transparency that comes with having an independent member or an external member on your board. Emma Johns is a partner with Deloitte, and her specialism is in business transformation and digital systems. And she was known to Leonie through an association with the Canterbury Netball. She sits on the board of the Canterbury Netball Association. So Emma has joined us and has already brought quite a bit of valuable insight to us in terms of how we might structure the governance of the project, but also where we might look to augment our thinking around some of the things that we're doing, for example, in the change space, in the architecture and integration space, and in the data space as well. So,
anything further, Councillor Kinmonth?
Not today. I probably would talk to Steve separately.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, and I'm not sure if you want to cover this off now. Just wanted some more information around 7 water consent monitoring project and what that involves. And seems like you are making some progress there.
Absolutely. I may run into my some limits of my technical knowledge with this one, so I may draw on other colleagues to help me out with this one. So this is a piece of work which is required, I understand, for the Waimea Dam consent monitoring, running into the summer with expected dry spells and managing those water consents. So we're working with the compliance team, and we've engaged Datacom to undertake most of the build for this. And there are about 4 phases to the work. The first phase is the minimum viable product, or the minimum thing we need to build prior to the summer to enable the automated consents notifications to go to the consent holders. So what the team are working on at the moment is how to get the triggers out of the Hilltop system for when water levels get to a certain point, which will then send a text alert to the consent holder. And so they're working through what happens if the levels go up and down quickly, over in a short period of time. You don't want multiple texts sent out to a consent owner. So they're working through all those rules and triggers. So that is due to be built, that first iteration, by the end of this month, and then made available by the 17th of December. And I've met that team weekly, and while it's proving quite challenging work to get done in the timeline, they are assuring me that they're on track for the first release. And then the next stage will be to improve upon that system and include email alerts, and allow users to upload photographs of their meters and that sort of thing. So there's a number of steps to go through.
I understand through you, Madam Chair, that this is so now we're looking at having returns weekly rather than daily through this process, and this will predominantly affect unaffiliated to the dam.
Yeah, and this is starting to get to outside my area of knowledge. I think the idea is that it's automated responses as they happen, but I see Steve's got his hand up there, so I'll hand over.
Yeah, the other way around. Once the dam is commissioned, the requirements of the resource consent differentiate between affiliated and unaffiliated consent holders, as you would expect. And at the moment, through the mechanism of the Dry Weather Task Force, we have an approach which says, if I paraphrase, the indications are likely that we will hit a trigger point next Tuesday. So we'll put in restrictions with effect from next Monday. In other words, there's some lead-in time before the restrictions and ultimately a cease takes effect. Once the dam is commissioned, the requirements, the resource consent are such that that lead time is not available to us or to consent holders. So we have to advise consent holders in real time as to whether or not there are restrictions placed on their water take. And as you might expect, that's most significant to those who are affiliated consent holders wanting to make sure that the unaffiliated consent holders who have a different regime of restrictions are fulfilling the obligations that they've got under their consent. So the only way that we could achieve this was to automate the process of receiving information from the Hilltop database system, which has got our river flows in it, and then indicating to consent holders that a trigger point had been reached. And that becomes more complicated, as you might imagine, when the river is being augmented from the dam. You need to understand what the underlying river flow is relative to the amount which has been pushed over the spillway, calculate the delta, and I make it sound very simple, but
vacant faces around it. You know, I get the gist of it, so thank you for that, Steve. So this, because initially it was going to be having to do that daily, wasn't it? And now we've pushed it out to a week. I think's the important point, isn't it?
And forgive me if I'm not up to speed with the particular nuance that you're bringing into it. That might be around the situation that we're in this summer prior to the commissioning of the dam, and when the commissioning takes effect. The tool that we're developing here, the consent monitoring tool, will help us with that program, but ultimately it's designed for a post-commissioning environment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Just another question from me on the same topic. How are we involving the end user in any of our design and development? Because ultimately something is received by the landowner or the water user. So how are we making sure that we're developing a tool that actually is going to meet their need?
Really good question, Councillor. The short answer for the MVP is that we're not involving the consent holders directly, because we simply don't have time to bring about this change in advance of the summer period. And the MVP, the minimum viable product that we have settled on, is just that, the absolute minimum that we need to do to automate the feed from Hilltop, and to then create an SMS which goes out to the consent holder. So we do have the consent holders cellular details so that we can send that message. I'm unaware at this stage, but I can go back and ask the team what communications we've got with the various consent holders and how we propose to roll that out, if you like, through December. But in terms of the design phase, we've kept that between ourselves, Datacom, and the internal groups for this side of Christmas.
Okay, well, I'll let Richard speak and then I might have a comment.
I'll just add on to what Steve has just said. At the moment, as you know, it's a very manual process and we give the week's notice and the like. With this new system, we'll still be able to give the week's notice, but what will happen, it'll be very precise. At the moment, you give your week's notice and say it's going to be likely to be next Tuesday, but it might be the Wednesday or the Thursday, but the restrictions are already applied from the Monday. What the system is going to do is say, right, next Tuesday is likely to happen, but you'll get a notification when it does. And this system's set up in such a way that when it hits the trigger, whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they'll be notified. So in terms of the consultation side of it, I mean, most of the unaffiliated and affiliated are fully aware of what their constraints are and what the conditions of their consent are. All we're doing here is putting a system in place to actually better manage the variables around that. So it probably doesn't need too much consultation other than letting them know that, you know, you're going to receive a message rather than by a phone call, you're going to get it by text or by email or whatever. So that's probably more the situation, but by all means, once it's all up and running, we can let them know how and when they're going to get these advices.
All right, thank you for that. It still does leave me begging the question. I understand you're working on the minimum viable product. I don't want to add complexity to it, but actually any tool is only going to be successful if it lands properly in the hands of the user. And so I would encourage you maybe just to think of it even in a little bit of a risk workshop, like what could happen if it doesn't actually land properly.
Through you, Madam Chair, absolutely, point well made. And I wouldn't suggest for a moment that we wouldn't want to do what you've suggested. I can't emphasise enough the critical time period that we've got for the 17 December delivery. So absolutely take that on board, and I will undertake to find out a little bit more from the team about how we might what we've done so far and how we might progress that, and I'll feed that back.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Can I just add that it's not a simple exercise? It is very complex. They're trying to get all the different parameters to make decisions. And I know Steve and the team, when the initial discussions took place, the complexities around it were realised. So we're trying to make a complex situation simple. And once the team's got the prototype in place, then we'll be able to explain it. Yeah.
Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I might have missed this earlier, but so is the timeline, is this a condition of the final consenting for the Waimea Dam? Is that why the timeline is so short? Where's the timeline come from?
There's two sides to the equation. Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, there's two sides to the equation, but yes, the consent that was issued for the dam requires the consent holders for water take to be managed more tightly than previously. And so this tool is in response to the consent for the dam, not the consent for the water take from the individual affiliated or unaffiliated consent holders.
Thank you very much. Just if I could just make a comment as well. Gosh, I've never seen a suite of ICT projects that have their status, as many of them, green at any one point in time. So, gosh, congratulations on that, team. And good luck with your awards. We'll look forward to hearing how that goes. So any further questions? We do have a resolution up there on the screen. Would anybody like to move that resolution? Moved by Deputy Mayor Bryant, seconded by Councillor Maru. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put that resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Chris and Peter and Steve. Right, this takes us to Community Infrastructure Group Activity Report. And so we will start with the management update. Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've already gone through the first part of it on welcoming staff. And then last month I commented on the depreciation, what we were funding and what we weren't. And I've put a table in there. Probably the interesting thing is that if you look at the three waters and the transportation, the value of our infrastructure's replacement value is about $2 billion. And on that basis, about 30 million a year is required in annual depreciation. Admittedly, 18 million of that 30 is in the transportation area. At the moment, transportation, as you were in the report and through your discussions recently regarding the long-term plan, we only fund 49% of that depreciation because that's the local share. The other 51% is funded by NZTA. It's probably fair to say that most of the funding that they have is based around renewals with reseals and shape correction and the like. So their share of the depreciation on the transportation is probably largely funded with their subsidies. But anyway, I just wanted to point this out to you, and you'll notice that on the unfunded depreciation for Three Waters, it's $3 million a year. This has been ongoing ever since this infrastructure went in place. So when we start talking about the capital program being not being completed and some carried forward, I just wanted to get to put the notion to you that although comment was made that we're overrating, I can tell you now this council's been underrating in depreciation for many, many years. And we are working to replace that. But at the moment, we're talking about $3 million a year. We're unfunding at the moment in the Three Water space. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Richard, for those opening comments. Who has? Jamie, a comment? No?
Richard Swaven. Sorry, Councillor Morrow.
It's happening, but
There you go. As long as you weren't. Excellent. All right. Well, we'll go to Councillor Maru. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to pick up the commentary around the depreciation. So I get the statement and the reconciliation, but didn't council resolve not to fully fund depreciation? And so this is sort of like, I get the explanation, but I was pretty sure we'd made some key decisions on not funding depreciation. So it's just a comment, I guess. I get the table, but I also get that it wasn't what we decided.
No, council did make a conscious decision not to fund depreciation. The point I'm making is by not funding depreciation, you're actually underrating what the actual cost of that infrastructure is.
All right. Councillor Maru's made his point. All right. Nothing further for Richard under the management update. We now are going to move to Jamie for transport. So, councillors, this is going to cover pages 24 through to 43. So over to you, Jamie. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors. I'll take my report as read. The only thing I want to just quickly talk about is a bit of a hot topic at the moment, which is the impacts of Waka Kotahi's decision to put a hold on any further approvals of Transport Choices works or approvals of any further funding towards those works. So that is a bit of a spanner in the works for that program. The program has been proceeding rapidly over the last 12 months, and we've obviously covered a lot of ground already and done a lot of work as an organisation to get ourselves ready to deliver a lot of work in a very short time frame. So the delay that's come on now is a little bit frustrating, but I guess it is what it is. And what I would like to say is, while it will impact the delivery of some works, we are carrying on and delivering some works that have already had that funding committed. So overall, our allocation under that program was approximately $16 million. We have currently approved and are able to spend approximately 5.6 million. So that work is happening. In Richmond, we've got William Street works underway, and in Motueka, we've got Parr Street and Old Wharf Road works underway. So there's a number of projects that we probably can't commit to yet until we either know more from Waka Kotahi or re-look at the scope. If 5.6 million is going to be the amount we get, and we're not going to get the other 10 million, then we might want to consider reprioritising some of the sites that are sitting within that program. So it's really put the cat amongst the pigeons internally. We've got a lot of interlinking projects that are being delivered collectively. So you'll be aware we've got Streets for People, which is unaffected by the funding for that is unaffected by this announcement from Waka Kotahi. But what is affected is we were designing our Transport Choices sort of safe intersections, safe crossings to line up with the works that we're delivering through Streets for People, particularly in Richmond with the cycle lanes. So now we're having to revisit how we start and finish some of our cycle lanes and what that looks like. So yeah, we're still working through the impacts. So just when we thought we were heading towards a smooth construction season, we're having to do a bit more work. So it is a lot of work on the team, but they're up for the challenge, and we will. The good news is we'll end up still delivering some great stuff to our community. So we're really still looking forward to that. Sorry, that was a lot to get through.
Thank you, Jamie. Just a question from myself on that. So completely appreciate the spanner in the works that this approach from Waka Kotahi has thrown us. So first question is, what's the time frame where we're going to get clarity? And then the second question is, I'm working on the assumption that if we've already sunk money into our planning, that even if we didn't get the funding to complete, that we will be able to recover our costs sunk to date, because it would be a very unsatisfactory situation if we were left having to cover those costs.
Yeah, so the first question is when we might know sort of, when we might hear. So we're totally uncertain about when we might even find out confirmation one way or the other. Either we will get more money or we definitely won't get more money. And unfortunately, it's out of Waka Kotahi's hands. The funding that they were administering is coming from a central government, so a Crown fund, the Climate Emergency Response Fund. And that's controlled by the Ministers of Transport and Finance, the allocation that's been made. Now, there is no Minister of Transport or Minister of Finance right now, so it's going to depend on when a new government is formed and when they feel in a position to make decisions about how they want to use that money. So nobody in the system at the moment, ourselves or Waka Kotahi, are at all certain about when that might happen. The second part is around the costs we've incurred to date. Yeah, so we've had teams of designers and staff working at pace, putting a lot of effort into the designs. Now, the good news is we've got our costs largely covered through the funding commitments that we've already got. So we don't expect this council to be out of pocket as a result of that decision to hold off on further approvals.
Excellent. Thanks for that clarification. All right, Councillor Mailing, then Councillor Murray.
Right. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's on the same topic. This is totally unsatisfactory from central government, from Waka Kotahi. We diverted resources from other projects to do this. So we under-delivered in our infrastructure projects because of this, because they said it had to be spent by a certain time. And to pull it partway through, they knew there was an election coming. I just think it's totally unsatisfactory from central government, and they should be told. Because that had an effect on our annual plan, had an effect on other projects. Because, Mr. Manager, you told us that. And also it has an effect on our contractors as well and the rest of the community. So, this stop-start thing just needs to stop. It's one of the reasons why we shouldn't have a 3-year term. It should be a 4-year term, but that's another subject. But it just makes absolute ludicrous work in the community, because you're stopping and starting projects, you're trying to let contracts, all right, we might have covered some costs, but everything you do is linked. So, I think they should get a letter from the mayor telling them how unsatisfactory this is, at the very least. And I'm sure other councils are in a similar position, or maybe even worse. At least the contracts we've let can be completed, as I understand it. And the initial letter, as I understand it, was they wanted to save a certain amount of money, and then it's gone further and changed again. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yeah. A few weeks ago, we received an instruction that we needed to make 10% savings out of the program. And then that was followed shortly thereafter by this further announcement that any or all approvals will be on hold.
Thank you very much, councillor Malin. Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess we need to be careful we don't throw stones in glass houses in terms of us changing our minds as I raise this. So it's actually in the activity plans on 78 to 79, Jamie, and I guess from and the other the two ward councillors probably need to express I've got this right or I've got it wrong, but I would hate to see the Tudor Street work continue or start at this stage until we know exactly what the envelope is, because the western side was the bit that we really saw benefit into with Weka. So I'd hate for us to lose anything on that side by just pressing go. And so in terms of tenders and that, I believe there might be a preferred contract, but please don't activate them yet. But in fairness, that's my view as to other ward councillors.
Well, we're moving to councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you through Madam Chair. I guess for me, it's that whole, we need to look at rescoping that work, because when we went out for the first tranche, we had it in our heads that we were going to get money for tranche 2, if not 3. And the priority for Motueka is certainly not what has gone through for tranche 1, as far as I'm concerned, and that's my take as a councillor for my ward. And the other concern that I have is that when we sit in meetings, the very next day we get a different message. So these cross messages are very confusing and rather frustrating. And like, we get seen in our community. So we were seen together as 3 ward councillors with the person who's responsible for project. So I get a phone call the minute I walk out. I get hounded by my community and I give a response based on what we're allowed to share. And then we come here today and we get told a different story. So overnight it's changed again. So please, can we be reassured that we're not putting tenders out, whether that you're the proposed or favoured or whatever the word is you want to use, until we have clarity around this whole funding? Because we as a council don't want to pick up, mop up, carry these extra costs or have our reputation dragged even further along. Thanks.
Through the chair, sorry, I'm not sure what the information you're talking about is, Tony, but I'll speak to Brent's comment first. And that is that we have given preferred tenderer status for the contract for Tudor Street, but we're not going to award until we get more clarity. So we are waiting to see if we can, through the Waka Tautai process, reallocate that funding to the work that rather than do as a priority. But we can't do that now, we have to wait.
Did you, Councillor Walker, thank you. Councillor Dakey.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess similar statement for Richmond, really. The community's been taking long on a journey and it's been painful at some points. We've done a lot of work, disappointing to get to this stage. I guess as the Richmond councillors, we really want some clarity and probably a meeting, some sort of direction going forward. We don't want to see a bits and pieces project delivered. And we want to see that the bits that the community wants actually get delivered, because there's some bits they're very much not keen on and they may end up being the things we deliver. So it'd be really great to have another overall meeting, just because we're a bit confused now as well. So if we're confused, the community is probably confused. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so thanks, Councillor Dakey. That's probably something, Jamie, that you could pick up on.
Yes, yeah. Given where we've ended up, we will need to, like I said in my preamble, we'll need to work through where to from here in terms of prioritisation, and it'll definitely involve workshopping with the councillors.
Richard?
Can I just talk openly and frank about this? Is that we've involved councillors on this and that kind of the day-to-day decisions as we're making them. And all I can say is welcome to our world, because in the operational area, we are making decisions and things crop up every day and we have to change. You've been parties to some detail, things have changed. It's not that we're deliberately changing it just to frustrate you. Welcome to our world. We are living day to day with things that crop up from left field and we have to make decisions on the hoof. You are involved in some of those day-to-day decisions and the transport choices. We are talking to you almost as we are designing it and thinking about it and getting your feedback. I just want to let you know that even during that, when we have Waka Kotahi making these edicts overnight, you're aware of that now. If you hadn't been involved, we would have just gone through and dealt with it and gone through and delivered what you asked us to do. But because you are involved in some of the day-to-day operations, you will end up with an element of frustration because things do change overnight. We have that every day in our operational world. So I just need to make that point.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Ellis and then Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge some of the comments that are made by previous councillors and also staff. It's an entirely frustrating process, and we have dropped a hell of a lot of money into consultation in the community, and our communities are not going to see, from what I can see, any projects that look like what they've actually fed back into. And I accept that it's incredibly frustrating for staff. If we have preferred contractors and we're putting everything on hold, what I'm curious is to, and given the comments of every other person here, is have we identified a point where we have a definite woe or go date? Because it is becoming a time where it is costing us so much more waiting for answers. Are we going to have a woe or go point on all of these projects, and are we going to identify what that might be?
Perhaps I could answer that. When that letter came out, we actually put a stop to what they told us to do. They said they were still committed to what we'd signed and committed to, but what we were told is no more contracts to be signed. So when we've done consultation up to the point we've got a preferred tenderer, we've put that on hold. That is frustrating for everyone. As far as cost is concerned, Jamie reassures me that the costs that have been incurred in all the design of the consultation is covered. We will get paid for that as part of what's already been agreed. The frustration is going through, as you say, is going through this consultation with our communities, and all of a sudden we're told to stop. And it's frustrating for the community, it's frustrating for us as well. But unfortunately, we can't put a date on it until we hear from Waka Kotahi on what the plan is. And obviously they need to hear from the two ministers that have yet to be appointed on what to do. So I'm picking that we may not get a final decision, may not be till December, may not be till January, February next year. So we're going to put a hold on it for that period of time. I mean, that's the worst case scenario, but that's probably in the situation we're in.
Did you want to make a comment, Rob?
Yeah. Further to the changing nature of the situation. So yesterday we got clarification that the money we've already got for implementation, we can go ahead and spend. So in Motueka, that's $3 million from Waka Kotahi, plus our local share. So we are in a position to go ahead with that work, but taking into account the view of the ward councillors, we're going to hold off on awarding any contracts until we find out whether we can reprioritise the work in the west. So we can proceed with work in Motueka, but we're not going to until we find that out, which will take a little bit of time.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bryant and then Councillor Greening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For you, just a comment / question in relation to the streets for people, what you've been talking about. One of the issues that I've been finding, people are expressing frustration around the road closures and the change layout. With all of this delay, is this going to mean that's going to be in place for a lot longer? And is there any options, particularly through the Christmas break, to reopen some of these roads?
Through the chair, the works that we've got underway now will obviously be completed as quickly as possible. That's always how we work. The way we were trying to plan out the entire program was in such a way that there was a logical sequence of sites and a sequence of projects to try and enable, because each, for example, in Richmond, works at to improve pedestrian safety at the Oxford Wensley roundabout and the Queen Salisbury roundabout. You know, both of those are quite high profile, high traffic volume. And so the way traffic will be diverted would be through other intersections. And so we wouldn't want to do work in those other areas at the same time as these. So with all of this now being thrown up and having to be reconsidered, it's too soon to say what the disruption could look like. But to come back to, I guess, a simple answer, the Old Wharf Roadworks are progressing well and likely to be completed soon. Would you, get Rob to
Sweet. Yeah, I can give you some details. So in Motueka, the work on Old Wharf Road should be complete by the end of next week. And the work on Park Street should be complete by mid-December. And there'll be no further work started until after Waitangi weekend to avoid the busy Christmas period. In Richmond, the work on William Street should be completed by Christmas as well.
Old Wharf Road, that's still open though, isn't it? Partially, it was totally closed, is it? Well, she must have taken me down a different road.
All right, you're happy?
No, I've got another question here, Madam Chair. Just in relation to now going to the Great Taste Trail, the issue around quad bikes and motorcyclists damaging barriers, I'd have to say I have seen more people, particularly in the rural areas, riding particularly dirt trail bikes on the cycleway. It just frustrates me beyond belief because it's a danger to other people using it. Does the bylaw, I suppose it's all about enforcement, even if I thought the bylaw had something in it about we could, I'm not sure what we could even do.
No, there's a limited amount we can do, because even if it's covered by a bylaw, it comes down to enforcement.
Yeah.
And it really requires the police to be there on the spot at that certain time, and that's very unlikely. And even putting up cameras, a lot of these dirt bikes aren't registered. It's similar to the situation, I guess, on beaches and the damage that these people cause. Yeah, I wish we had an easy answer, but it's just one of those things we have to deal with and it's part of maintenance, unfortunately.
And the cost, of course. It's frustrating, I must say. Just in relation to the two closures of Spooners Tunnel, were they advised? Because I think I've seen people riding up there during that time. So was there any alternative provided?
Sorry, I'll need to come back to you with that.
Thank you.
Councillor Greening.
Yeah, Councillor Bryant's probably answered one of my questions, which was the road closures and how we're going to manage that. So thank you for that. Interesting observation on motorcycles. Just wondering where the line is drawn on what are effectively now becoming electric powered quad bikes and motorcycles, and where the line is between that and electrified cycles. It's all getting very interesting in that space. So that's just something to keep in mind. Don't quite agree with Councillor Manning's observations at the start of this. Welcome to democracy when you have two parties who have very different views on transport funding. And I think National were pretty clear that they were going to cannibalise a lot of the climate funding. And no doubt this is why Waka Kotahi has paused and reflected, because this is what is in their national policy election manifesto. So I think the funding will end if they hold to their election manifesto. Of course, negotiations are ongoing, and it may change, but given who they're negotiating with, I don't envisage that. So I certainly welcome Councillor Dykey and Alice's observation that we need to regather and reset, because I think that's where we're going. And it will be an interesting committee discussion later today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Greening. Councillor.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I'd like to say thank you to all your team doing this report, particularly the large part of it. the last part of the report is always good, clear, factual stuff that I support. Page 39, clause 4.32. Or you got Auckland CAS crash data presentation. That's obviously going to be one of our go-to statistics because they seem to be the only ones who've done these statistics. Looking at what you've said there, and the assumptions are that half the pedestrians are at fault for falling over and causing them harm themselves as opposed to being in vehicles. Would that be sort of a right assumption?
Through the chair, I think what the research that was put together was trying to highlight is the challenge we have understanding how many people are actually being hurt whilst interacting with our transport system. If we just rely on our the most accessible information, which is in the crash database. I think what it's highlighting is there's a place for the health service to work more closely with us to better understand where harm is occurring and how it's occurring on our network. Because something I've heard from councillors is, you want to know when somebody gets hurt as a result of the way our footpath is or our road is. And at the moment, it's really hard to understand. And the information that we're provided here kind of shows that there's this iceberg that we, at the moment, can't really see. So we're looking forward to working with our colleagues in the district health service to see if there's a way we can access better information, and and then we can probably make better decisions about where we need to make improvements. Yep.
So I am sorry through you, Madam Chair. So I am right that this is going to formulate from here a lot of your decision making in the future.
I believe it should. Yeah.
Okay. And one last small question. And I don't know whether it's for Nick Ching or yourself, but I was at the Harbour Masters building yesterday, and some hoons have been going around there, mucking up the surface there. So I'd like to see, if possible, some of the planter boxes maybe put around in front of the Harbour Masters building to stop some of the hooning and stopping up the road surface, because what they've done would really annoy me if I had to pay for it myself.
Through the chair, we're putting in some speed bumps, and I'm not sure whether they're in now, and we'll be putting in some more planter boxes as well. Yes.
Doing my donuts.
All right, thank you. Councillor Dowler.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much, but I'll back my two ward councillors regarding the transport choices thing. I vented yesterday at our update meeting that we had, and that's where we weren't given the full information as far as I'm concerned either. I've had a few phone calls recently from people living slightly rural now regarding the state highway upgrade work that was done just recently when Waka Kotahi closed one side of the road and had the other side coming from Motueka to Nelson Open. The first week that roadwork was in place, people were coming home that night and turned left at Peavine Corner and went up through the Murray Highway as we know it, and came across the council roadworks that had stopped going everything. And that really frustrated those people completely, to the fact that they were diverted and then they were getting held up on our own council road. They said, the word to me is, surely we could have done better and delayed that work until after the highway was reopened. Because they said, and no doubt staff will argue and say different, their delays were quite long. So just pointing that out just while we're here, and the other stuff, well, it won't be done in this room anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Dowler. Did you want to make a comment? Jamie, or?
Yeah, I'd have to check with the team and find out what was actually happening and why, to see if there was perhaps a different way to do it.
Thanks very much. And just a question from me before we break for morning tea. And this is possibly, Jamie, a long-term plan discussion, but in your report under paragraph 4.1, you mentioned that you've been preparing the funding request to Waka Kotahi for the 24-27 period, that the requested amount is a significant increase on previous years. I guess, so what signals have been given? I mean, for us to put in a funding request, which is a significant shift, what signals have we had from Waka Kotahi that they're going to be receptive to that? And what is going to be our fallback position if in actual fact our funding is more aligned to our current level of funding?
So the signals we've received were under the previous government. So they released a draft government policy statement on land transport back in September. But that signalled a boost to local road maintenance funding. We will now await the incoming government's draft government policy statement to see if they also will boost road maintenance funding. You know, the signals that we had received from Waka Kotahi and the Ministry of Transport is that they all acknowledged that road maintenance required more funding, and we were confident that our request would be well received. I still think that's the case. But of course, we find ourselves in this position every 3 years where we just don't know if the funding that will be approved for us matches what we think we need. And so there's nothing new in this. We hope the gap is, if there is a gap, we hope that it's small. And I think we remain confident.
Jamie, I just wonder whether perhaps you could amplify when we put this funding request in, it's not just for more money. We've got some substantial evidence to show that we definitely need that money because of the state of our current roading network.
Correct. Yeah. So what we've been working on and have submitted to Waka Kotahi is effectively our business case for the increase in funding. And what we would really like to see is a proper assessment of our business case. If they think we've got it wrong, then tell us where they think we've got it wrong. Don't just give us an arbitrary number and tell us that's all we've got, because that's not good enough.
Gosh, if only politics didn't come into play. And then my final question before we break, I think your chart on page 25 around unsealed road customer service requests is actually quite interesting, because I mean, you know, looking at that data, it shows quite a dramatic decrease over time for those service requests. So what's changed?
There's a range of things that affect the number of service requests we get for unsealed roads. The weather is one. So you'll see in the June, July, August 2022 period that we had quite a wet, stormy period. So there was more requests because the rain affects the roads. What I'd like to give credit to is our contractor and it really our contractors, and it comes down to the skill of the operators. So firstly, we have highly skilled grader operators. So I'd like to put that on the record. And we have the resources we need in terms of the money to keep the graders going. And so that was something that this council approved back in the 2021 LTP, we increased unsealed road maintenance. So you're seeing the results of that decision. It was only a modest increase, but it seems to be working.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a story there in the data, actually. All right. Thank you very much. On that basis, I think we will have a break now for morning tea. It's 5 to 11. If we could be back here by 10 past. Thank you very much. Scheduled to start at 12 o'clock. So we will need to be finished before then. So if you could just be mindful of that. And so we'll head off now. We're on to pages 43 through to 72 with Mike on water and waste. Thank you, Mike. Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just starting up my device here. All good to go. Good morning, councillors, Chair. Just a couple of things to report today. I'll take the report as read. In the report, I talked about our compliance notice that we got from Taumata Arawai for Protozoa with a directive to have Dovedale and 88 Valley updated also compliant by the 31st of December 2024 and Redwood by the 31st of December 2025. Now we're putting together a response to this whereby we will be explaining the implications and cost of trying to meet that deadline. Besides which, even the timeframes to get resource consent and land agreements and so on could take 2 to 3 years. So it's an unrealistic timeframe, and a number of other reasons as well. It's to meet that sort of timeframe, we would not be able to do the regional options that we're looking at, the regional strategies to try and reduce costs and reduce the number of treatment plants we're working with. So over the next week or so, we will be formalising a response to Taumata Arawai to that compliance notice. Quick update on the Motueka wastewater treatment plant. As I say, the membranes are in transit at the moment. They're on the water. We expect them hopefully towards the end of the month. And we've also had to order new O-rings for the casings for the membranes, but those will be here at about 2 weeks. We also need to upgrade the water supply. At the moment, for the work we're doing on the membranes, we're trucking water out to there. We don't have a potable supply on site. And we were using recycled water from the plant as a cost-effective way of flushing the membranes. But one of the issues identified is that the recycled water has high levels of ammonia in it, and that potentially is a cause for the biofilm buildup we're getting on the membranes. So we're looking at options of getting fresh water out to the site, either using the bore on site. We're testing that water to make sure there's no issues with it. We do have a few concerns about the high groundwater table and low shallow depth of the bores. We're also looking at getting in a pipeline from our public water supply network, but it is a distance of over 2 kilometres from the nearest network. So there's no easy options there. We've also sent away cartridges for an autopsy, and we're hoping to get that result back by the end of the year. So we're going to have to decide whether we start using the new membranes before we get that final outcome or not, but we will take advice from the suppliers on how best to deal with the new membranes. And the final item from me is this will be the last rivers and coastal report from my team. In the future, it'll come from Rob Smith under his operational report. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all from me.
Thanks, Mike, for those comments. Handing over for questions, Councillor Kinnermonth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 53, clause 5.22, back onto the Motueka wastewater treatment plant. The consent must be lodged by 30th October. Was it lodged by that date or was that?
To you, Madam Chair, it has not been lodged. We've still got a few queries to work through, and we are working with iwi on that as well, because we've got to do it in combination with them, in consultation with them. And it is still on track, but we're waiting further advice on that.
Thank you. And then page 54, clause 5.33. The open drain along the back of the properties in Stafford Drive. It has been passed to council.
Yes.
What does that mean? Sorry.
I'm not happy about that at all. Basically, we had an agreement with the property owner that we would upgrade those drains. I've got to say, it's not the current property owner. The property owner we had an agreement with has sold the property and left the country. But essentially, the agreement was that he would maintain those drains if we upgraded them to that standard. He didn't maintain the drains. Instead, he applied for a variation to his consent that required that passed it on to council. And we've only found out about that when it got into a state of bad sort of disrepair, and the new property owner asked us why we were not maintaining it.
Anything further, Councillor Kinnermore? No,
Not at the moment, through you, Chair.
thank you. Any other questions for Mike? Yep, Deputy Mayor Bryant.
I have now.
Just in relation to the gravel management, really good to see that gravel coming out in another application, that Tapua to Kohatu. But I'm not sure if it's here on the LTP stuff that we have this afternoon. There was an issue raised around the bridge at Pidgeon Valley. And I know that the Wakefield Community Council are keen to hear from ward councillors back at their next meeting. I think what I did read was that we didn't think it was an issue, but obviously I've had a number of locals raise it with me. So I'm just wondering if we could get that clarified before the meeting, please.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, I will follow up. I don't know the details, but I'll certainly follow up and get someone to get back to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, just a question from me, thanks. So that issue of the overpumping of partially treated wastewater in Motueka, and we are lodging a consent under the emergency provisions. How does that differ from the situation, for example, in Mapua, where we have had wastewater discharges and not able to get a consent because it's not a permitted activity?
With Mapua, we did have to get a retrospective consent. So in that respect, it's no different. It's just the situation this time around is slightly different. I guess we've got to go through whether it could have been foreseen or not. So that'll be investigated through the consent process. But yeah, I think they're very, very similar.
And then I also wanted to just get clarification about that situation of having to take over the maintenance in Ruby Bay. I guess my question is, so what have we put in place in terms of our systems and processes within the council so that that variation to that consent wouldn't be considered in isolation of perhaps a discussion with our stormwater team?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I only realised that when I was reading this report and asked the same question. I have not heard back from our consents team yet, but I will be following up.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for Mike? If not, we will move to pages 72 to 76 on property. Thanks, Mike.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll take the paper as read. Nothing to add, except today's the settlement day for King Edward Street.
All right. Any questions for Nick? It would appear not. Nick, thank you very much. And then we're going to move on to the program delivery update. And we've got Rob and Adam in place of Russell.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Over to you. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. Just a couple of good stories. I think we've had too much doom and gloom around here. So coming back to Pohara shared pathway, we've had an email come through from the Secretary of the Golden Bay Cycle Walking Society. I guess congratulate us on the work that we've done there, and I've seen a real improvement in a usage of that area. Just acknowledgement, I guess, of council's support, and also the ELT, particularly Janine and Richard, around supporting our team to get that project through, because it was pretty tough going. It's worked out much better, I think, than what people were thinking around particularly parking. So it's pretty cool. The other thing is, going back a little bit, but a couple of months and last week, the Motueka Library has won a couple of other awards. So it won the Colour Steel Commercial Building of the Year, and it's also got a highly recommended in the Timber Awards last week. So another successful project. So there you go. We can do it. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Yes, great to reflect on those successes. Any questions, Councillor Butler?
Yeah, just to say thank you very much for the path, and how did we get the timber barrier? Because I think originally it was going to be a line of rocks, but it's wonderful to have that timber fence there. Was that it was enough money in the budget to do that?
Yeah, there was, and thanks to Graham. I think Graham negotiated to get there. So
yeah, thanks very much. So in terms of the Better Off funding projects, should I ask you about that now, or is that another further on down? Just the Motopipi Street footpath extension. No, I think it's further on down.
No, that does come under the program delivery update section.
Yeah, I just ask this every time because it's held up with Fonterra, not actually coming on board with it, because the last I heard, or I think Russell said at the last meeting, they were worried that having the footpath extension was going to interfere with the milk tankers or something. So there's just a bit of nervousness about it actually running out of time for that if we don't get a response from Fonterra, because we have to have a little bit of land. It has to cross the road. And
so I'm not completely across it, but I spoke to Rob Canton, the corridor, and he was meeting with them last week trying to push that through. I can't say he's been successful yet, though.
Perhaps I can comment. Rob did confirm to me there was a very positive meeting. So, but I'm not sure the actual outcome of that positivity, but he did say it was positive. Yeah. We had met with Fonterra just prior to that to talk about the upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant in Tākaka, because it was a really good joint venture and really successful, and we've got pretty good trust with Fonterra at the moment, and they're working with us really, really well. So when Robert said there was a positive outcome, I'm assuming that positive means positive.
Councillor Shawcross.
Yeah, it's not really a question. It's probably another good news story. Obviously, the got the funding and the contractor for the Murchison pump track, and it's been a real pleasure working with the team here and all the people in Murchison to get that underway, and it's going to be a real asset for the community over there.
Thank you very much. Of course, it would be remiss of me not to comment as well that such a large number of green projects in this report. I'm hoping that's not a cut and paste error, but anyway, well done. All right. Well, off lightly. Thank you very much, Rob and Adam. So we're now going to move on to reserves and facilities update. And this is pages 87 onwards. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to take the report as read, but just draw your attention to the community housing survey that was undertaken recently, and just some of the data there, just to clarify. So question 1 is obviously about overall management satisfaction. Question 3 is inquiry, and that's in terms of staff contact or other council staff. So I think there might have been a little bit a column cut off there, just explaining that a little bit more, but happy to take any questions.
Councillor Dakey.
Yeah, just a comment around the community housing. Obviously, your report says that the wait list for council cottages is 144. So that's a real reminder for us when we head into LTP that there's a real need out there in the community. And yeah.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your report, and through you, Madam Chair. I see some of the comments on there. It's around need double glazing. Do our council pensioner units meet the warmer, safety, healthy homes requirement?
That's something that I'd like to investigate further, because my understanding was that double glazing was a requirement of that, but I'd like to check that with our building team, along with insulation and heating, obviously.
Cool, thank you for that.
Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a question. So it's 8.10 McKee Domain. Has it always been $15 per night, or has that gone up? I just think I've heard a rumour about some comments that it used to be a really affordable place to go, but now it's becoming less. I just. Am I right? Oh, thanks.
I'll just ask Richard to comment on that one.
Sorry, can you just repeat again, please? So McKee Domain, has it, I think I've heard the answer. So when did it go up to $15 per night? And does that have an effect on, because it used to be primarily lots of families that used to go there, and that was a affordable holiday. And from when did it go up?
It gets changed with the fees and charges through council. So it usually goes up around June, June, July.
Thank you. So we put it up.
Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just a compliment actually around the Harriet Court walkway. That's been on the radar for a little while. I think I talked to Beryl about that a couple of times, and that's linking those two areas together. So that's a really appreciated outcome by those in that area, that they can now walk on a surface that they're not going to get their shoes wet, as I understand it, in the winter months and the spring and summer. So thank you for that, whoever. And I think Robert was involved as well. So that's a good outcome, because it was going to be a stormwater diversion as well as a walkway. So good stuff. So just help the Richmond councillors out lobbying for that.
Thank you. Councillor Kinnan-Month, then Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Mine a big pat on the back for the new campground manager in McKee Domain. He really has taken us up another level, and it is worth $15 a night there now, because we've got hot and cold running showers, we got flat new barbecues, toilets there. It really is top notch domain. So could you give my vote of thanks to the new caretaker? Good job.
Thank you. Will do.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. Mine's on the same topic. Can you just advise me, do we cap how many nights that people can stay at Kina and McKee's grounds? Thank you, because it's not noted in the report.
There is a cap, and I couldn't tell you the details, but it's in the camping bylaws. So there's so many days per 12 months that you're allowed to stay, and I think it's around 50. So it's quite a lot. But within original, I think within I think we do show a difference between summer and winter camping periods. But I'm not sure if that's still relevant or not, or we used to do. And one was 3 weeks for summer, and one was 6 weeks for winter. What we've got to be careful with is that it doesn't become a place to stay, a home for people, because it does put off other families for camping. So we are aware that we don't want long-term stayers in the camp.
I guess that's why I'm asking the question, because I'm very mindful that prior to it becoming $15 a night and kids under 15 free, that it had become quite a place for some of our locals to reside because there was nowhere else. So just for, if you could, we can take that offline, if you can come back and let me know how long you can or can't stay there. Thanks.
Oh, no, he doesn't want it. Yeah, look, I'd just like to make a comment about the Centennial Park basketball hoops. I went to the opening there, and the feedback that we've had from the community is it's great to see, that initiative put in there. Apparently they're really, really highly utilised. Possibly kids climbing up on top of them, which might be an issue. They're either going to hurt themselves or they're going to damage them, but need to work through that. And, a big thanks to our ex-Nelson Giants staff member, Tony, just the way that you went about it and engaged with the children, it's fantastic. So thank you very much for that. Whoops, Councillor Shellcrass might have the final word.
That was going to be my one, but same deal. Amazing, and I think this on Tony, a real asset to the team, bringing some real energy in, and got some cool things happening. So, yeah, big ups.
Good. Well, it's been a morning of general applause, I think. So we do have a resolution up there, councillors, if anybody would like to move that. Moved by Councillor Shellcrass and seconded by Councillor Ellis. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put that resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. All right, that takes us to the end of our ops meeting this morning, councillors, and I will conclude with a closing karakia. Kia hora, not that one. Kia hora, te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, aroha atu, aroha mai, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou katoa. Let calm go forth, the sea shines like the green stone. Goodwill has been exchanged. Acknowledgements to you, me, and everyone here. Thank you very much.